Hi, everybody. This is Arkady Frekhtman. I'm a New York City personal injury trial attorney, and welcome to Last Week Tonight Live. We are here live, and we're doing a special Thursday early edition. Usually I do it a little bit later, but today I have some appointments, some meetings, so I wanted to do it a bit earlier. So if you're here, just leave a comment, and we would be happy to read your comments and answer your questions live. And you get the benefit of an attorney giving you their opinion and a free consultation. So I'm happy to do that. And please like and subscribe to our channel. Let us know what content you want to see. Like if you're looking for another video that's not already in our playlist, because we have a pretty extensive playlist. I believe it's like over maybe 500 videos. I've been doing it since 2012, so more than 10 years now. But if there's something out there that you want to see that's not published, just let us know, and I'm happy to do that. Like somebody asked me, I was on a consult call a few weeks ago, and somebody asked me to do a video about a certain type of injury and verdicts for that injury. And I believe it was like an ulnar nerve, the ulnar nerve, which is a nerve in the hand and near the elbow. And so I did that. It's recorded already, so I'm going to post it probably next week. I haven't posted that one yet, but it's already done. So I'm happy to do that. I actually have access to a few new databases, because for me to find out what the verdicts are, I have to be able to go on like Lexis or Westlaw, or there's like other databases like the Jury Verdict Reporter, and I have access to some of those now. Some of them you have to pay for, even if you're an attorney, but I did that, so now I have access. So I'm going to do some more videos about verdicts and settlements. I know that's like one of the number one questions is like, how much am I going to get? What is my case worth? What is the lawsuit value of my case? Also, people ask, how long is the case going to take? Which is another popular question. And so, we'll address both of those. Okay, I see we have someone here, Shannon Martinez. She says, hello. Hi, how are you? Thank you for joining us. Yeah, feel free. If you have any questions, just feel free to drop them in the chat. If we don't have any questions right now, what I'll do is I'll go into the YouTube, comments, and I'll start answering some of the comments that we've had on videos from before, just so we start with, because this is our last week tonight where we answer people's questions or comments, whether it's live or recorded. Oh, Leonardo says hello. Hi, how are you? Leonardo's our strong fan and client. He's always asking me questions, texting. He's interactive. That's what we like. We like people to be interactive. It's important for clients and viewers too. Be interactive. It's okay. Ask a question. And if you have a lawyer, if you're going through a case, ask them questions. Make sure that they answer you. They should be answering you. It should be a two-way street. You want to be able to get your questions answered. Okay, let's see here. So we'll go to the YouTube comments. Okay, here's I guess we'll just start with like the most recent comment. The most recent, and we'll see, like I'll try to filter them, so we'll try to get some good, interesting questions, so everyone's interested. I don't want to, okay, here's some comments about some shorts. And then James Jordan says, you can't get this type of openness from your own attorney, and that's ridiculous. And he's responding to my video, how to negotiate settlements in a personal injury case. And that was a short. But there's also a long video. A lot of the shorts are just like snippets, like 30-second snippets from the longer video. So if you want to see the longer video, I believe it's called How We Negotiate Settlements, or How to Negotiate a Settlement in a Personal Injury Case. And that's a longer video. So yeah, I think we went through some of the negotiation techniques. Let's see. And then Fred says, can you help me in my case? Yeah, sure. I mean, just text me 347-566-9595. I'm happy to help. Just tell me about the case, what happened, what are the facts, what is the injury, where are you, what city, I'm happy to help. I mean, this week I think I've talked to at least 10 or 15 people. I know already I helped one gentleman he had a truck crash in Georgia, and he needed help. I had I put him with one of our partners who's an excellent trial attorney, and it's actually not just one trial attorney; it's an entire partnership of trial attorneys. And they're actually, oh, it's funny, they're actually from this group that's just wearing this T-shirt today, Trial by Human. They're actually from Trial by Human, and they're going to be helping him. And yeah, I think they're going to get him an excellent result. He had a truck accident, and he had some serious injuries to his back, and they took his case. They're going to help him, and they're actually doing an event, I think, for trial lawyers in Atlanta. I believe it's like starts tonight, and it's going to go this weekend. I can't go because I have to stay here in New York. I have some appointments, but if I could, I would go. They're great. I've been to some of their events, and they're really, really helpful. All right, let's see. What questions do we have here? A lot of comments. Reginald Williams says, wow, you have a lot of $1 million cases. I'm going to call you the $1 million man. Oh, he's responding to this video called $1 million Fusion Settlements in Our Partnerships. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, thank you. I mean, we try to, do our best. We try to get into the 7 figures on cases if we can. And of course, the next goal is to get into the 8 figures, which would be 10 million and up. But that has to be a serious case, obviously, but it's definitely doable. Actually, these guys, the trial by human guys and the trial lawyers for justice, they're called TL4J. They've gotten a lot of 10 million and up verdicts. Okay. Well, here's a question. Just out of curiosity, what turns you off about being a judge? And she's responding to my short called Lawyer for Life, where I talked about, I think somebody else asked me, do you want to be a judge? And I said, no. It's not really that it turns me off. I mean, I respect judges, obviously, and I have the utmost deference and respect for judges, and I wouldn't necessarily say no to being a judge, but I just feel like in my heart of hearts, I'm more of an attorney, and I enjoy being an attorney and I enjoy helping people, and I feel like if I was a judge, I'd probably get bombarded with paperwork, right? And I'd have to like read all these motions. And also, they would give me trials and they'd say, look, you have to do this trial. And maybe, I wanted to do something else, but you'd be forced to just sit there and watch a trial. And then what's your role really in watching a trial? As a judge, your role is limited to saying, okay, that's objection is sustained, meaning it's proper. Don't ask that question. Or that objection is overruled, meaning it's improper. Go ahead and ask that question. So I'm more like a referee, like an umpire, as opposed to the player, right? I'd rather be the player, hit the home run, than be the umpire and say, that's a ball, that's a strike. I mean, both roles are important, but being an umpire, I don't know, being a judge, it's just not really in my blood, I guess. It's not really like what I feel passionate about. And also, the jury is the true judge of the facts, right? Because the facts are like what happened, right? Who's at fault? The jury is the judge of the facts, not the judge. The judge doesn't really decide anything. In fact, there was one case where a famous lawyer here in New York had a fight with the judge, and it was like a big fight, and they were fighting the whole trial. I didn't see the trial, but I read the transcript. It was crazy. Like the judge would say, we're not on the same page, or the lawyer would say, are you on the same page? And the judge would say, objection sustained. What do you mean on the same page? And he would say, you don't know what on the same page means? And he would like be yelling at the judge. And so the lawyer was just like a tough lawyer, and he was very confident. And so he just didn't like this judge, and this judge didn't like him. They had some kind of, and it didn't really matter. Like the guy still got like a crazy verdict, like $20 million verdict or whatever it was. So I guess my point is that the jury is the true judge of the facts. So I think I'd rather be like a jury trial lawyer. And plus, like as I get a little bit older, as I get into my 50s, 60s, maybe I don't want to maybe I want to be like semi-retired. And as a lawyer, what you could do is you could just pick and choose a handful of cases. Let's say you have 10 cases, and then you could handle those cases. You could go to trial, whether it's in New York or some lawyers will go to trial all over. They'll go to trial in Florida, they'll go to trial in California, wherever. They can partner with different people. So I would love to do that. In fact, I have partners all over now. So like, for example, if I get a case in Florida, well, I can give it to a partner who's an excellent trial attorney who just had like a $12 million and a $9 million verdict himself. Say he does that trial, but he'll say, Arkady, come on down to Fort Lauderdale, and I'll just take a flight down, and then we'll do it together. Maybe he'll do the opening and I'll do the first witness, or vice versa. That would be just so cool. So yeah, so that's why I think that's better. Okay, we got some questions here. Leonardo says yes, and I'm very happy to be your client. And Mr. Mogg, oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, actually, I saw Mr. Mogg today. We did a Zoom call. He had a new client in his office, and I was on the Zoom call, and we both spoke to that client. We answered a lot of his. Actually, we answered a lot of his questions. I wish I should have recorded that. I couldn't record it because it was a client meeting, but it was really good consultation. We answered like all his questions, and they're like perfect answers for like people to hear how a lawyer should explain things to a client. Okay, Truth Seeker says, good to see you. Can you explain to us about the eggshell law? Yeah, sure. So the eggshell law, basically, it's an eggshell skull, right? So what it basically means is that you take your plaintiff as you find him. And so the eggshell, and I'll tell you right here, here's a brain. Here's a eggshell eggshell brain. So for basically, like what it's saying is that, like, say somebody is really, really strong, like a bodybuilder, or like they go to the gym, they have muscles, they're really strong, they're in perfect shape, and they get hit by a car. Nothing happens, right? Because they have a strong, whether it's their head or their muscles or whatever, nothing happens. Now you have an octogenarian, somebody who's 85. They get hit with the same exact car, the same exact, speed, 5 miles an hour. They fall over. They have an eggshell, meaning their head is, weaker. They're 85. They fall over. The head hits the ground. The brain cracks. Okay, their brain is now like spilling out. They need brain surgery. So one case, the strong guy, case is like worthless. It's worth zero. Maybe it's worth like $5,000, right? The other case, the guy has brain surgery. He might die. It's worth millions. So the point is that you take your plaintiff as you find him or her. And, that's what it basically means, that you don't get a discount because the person you hit already had some condition, like being old. And it could also apply to pre-existing conditions. A lot of lawyers are afraid to take cases with pre-existing conditions, but you really shouldn't be afraid, because you can't sue for whatever medical condition you had before the car crash. Well, obviously, right? Because you already had it. If you tried to sue for that, it'd be a fraud. But you could sue to the extent that whatever you had before was made worse. And that's known as aggravation or exacerbation. So it's aggravated or it's exacerbated by the car crash, right? So that's what you sue for. And that's right in the pattern jury instructions, meaning these are the instructions that the judge reads to the jury. And based on those rules of law, the jury then issues a verdict. So that's right in the in the rules. So it's pretty straightforward. Okay, let's see what other questions we have. Oakley says, have seen all your videos, Mr. Frekhtman, love your content. I've learned so much about injury law and it's helped me. Oh, that's great. And it helped him understand my case. That's great. Yeah. I was, yeah, I'm glad I'm helping. I mean, that's my goal. My goal is helping serious injury victims and families. And Alez says, if premises liability is in my favor, 100%, the store is at fault. Would that open up leverage for me to accumulate punitive damages? No, you can't get punitive damages just because they're at fault. See, whether or not they're at fault is a liability issue, right? So liability answers the question, who is at fault? Punitive damages is different. Punitive damages is almost like their conduct is so egregious and so malicious and so reckless and wanton that they know that what they're doing is going to hurt people, but they don't care because what they're doing maybe is making them money. For example, if I have a trucking company and somebody says, hey, can you drive this truck to California. I'm going to give you $100,000. I really got to get this trailer. It's full of really valuable things. I need this in California. And I say, you know what? I don't have any driver. I have one driver. And he's like, he's drunk. He just finished a bottle of vodka. But I say, you know what? I don't want to lose 100K. Get in that truck and go drive it to California anyway. That would be punitive damages because I know he's drunk and I'm sending him anyway, right? That would be an example. But like in New York, the judges really don't like to allow punitive damages. In other states, it might be a little bit easier, but just because a store is at fault, that wouldn't, rise to punitive damages. It has to be like malicious conduct, wanton, reckless, egregious. Like basically, it has to be putting profits over safety, and you'd have to almost like do it on purpose, knowing that whatever you're doing is either going to or is very likely to injure people, right? Injure the public, and you don't care. You're just going to do it anyway. So it's pretty rare, but it happens. And then Shania Chopra says, hello, attorney. Does all discovery close in 6 months? No. I mean, discovery could be open longer than 6 months. I mean, sometimes discovery could be open actually a lot longer. It could be open for years. Discovery is basically the part of the case where you request documents. Okay. So you are requesting documents. In a car crash case, I would request photos of the cars. In a premises liability case, I would request the maintenance records, right? The inspection records. Maybe there's a checklist when they walk through the aisles in a supermarket and they say, okay, this is safe, things like that. So in a ceiling collapse case, you might request prior repairs of the ceiling, or you might request invoices for whatever company was there to repair the ceiling. So it just depends. Like you're requesting discovery. A defendant is always going to be requesting medical records. So they're going to ask for your medical records. They're going to maybe ask for prior accidents. They're going to ask for, things like that. So, the whole thing, and it's not just limited to documents, it's also deposition. So they're going to take your deposition as a plaintiff. You're going to take their deposition as a defendant, right? But then you might need depositions of other people, like other defendants. Like, for example, they might produce somebody who doesn't really know much. So then you have to do another deposition, and you have to depose the actual maintenance guy, right? The actual guy on the ground who does the cleaning. So that could take longer. It could take like, a year. It could take even 2 years. It just depends. But it doesn't usually close in 6 months unless the court has a really strict order and the court says you only have 6 months. And then you can ask for an extension if you need it. So it just depends. But there's no such rule that I've ever heard of that you only get 6 months for discovery. Okay, and then here we have a question. I was looking all over, but I don't see anyone talk about a short sale settlement with a car where you owe more than it's worth. All I see is people talking about when it comes to an accident. A short sale settlement. Oh, you mean like for the car itself? So for example, let's say a short sale settlement of the car. I'm not sure what a short sale. I have to look that up. I don't really deal with property damage. I think that maybe has to do with property damage. You mean like the car itself, right? Like for example, the car is worth, let's say, I don't know, the car is worth maybe like, I don't know, 10,000, but you owe, because you're leasing it or you're financing it, you owe like 20,000, right? You owe more than the car is worth. So how do you deal with that? Well, I'm thinking the adjuster could somehow help with that. I don't know, because I only do serious injury cases. So I mostly try to get people compensation for their pain and suffering, as well as their loss of enjoyment of life, which is like the human story and the biography and how it affected their life. Of course, like, if you did damage your car in a crash, I could get you money for your property damage. And the same way I can get lost wages, I can get future medical expenses, I can get economists, vocational rehab experts. So I'm sure it's an easy issue, but I don't specialize in that. But I could probably find somebody who does if you need help with that. Okay, and then Oakley says, I was working as a police officer in Indiana, and in May of 2022, I was rear-ended by a semi-truck. Oh, that's bad. That's bad. I sustained a spinal cord injury and a traumatic brain injury. Unfortunately, this will be a lifelong injury. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. That's the kind of case we handle. Like, let me know if you need any help, like if you need a consultation. All the consultations are confidential and they're free, and I'm happy to do it. I try to help as much as I can. Sometimes people might text me, and I might not be able to do it right away, but I'll try to do it either the same day or like reasonably quickly, maybe within a day or two. So basically, yeah, I'm happy to give you a consultation. Just text me 347-566-9595. But I think that's a strong case. I mean, you're a police officer. You get rear-ended. It's a semi truck. So remember, semi trucks could have a lot of layers of insurance. They'll definitely have usually like $1 million. That'll be primary. But then you could also get broker liability, who brokered the shipment. You could also get shipper liability, depending on the way that it's. You have to ask for discovery in order to see if it's applicable. I did a video on that actually. I think it's called Truck Accident Lawsuits: How to Get More Money, and it talked about broker and shipper. It was just recent, like a few weeks ago. So you could check out that video. But yeah, you could get more. So if you have more than $1 million, then you might have like 1 plus 5, excess or umbrella or these other entities like the broker, the shipper. And now you have these trucking cases that go for like 50 million. I've seen it. Like actually one of the lawyers in another state that I partnered with him on a case, and he ended up having one case where he got a $50 million verdict in a traumatic brain injury truck crash. Okay, and then Wayne says vicarious liability is the employer responsible for an accident caused by the employee in a company car. What if the owner who stops for personal business in a company car and causes it? Yeah, well, vicarious liability is usually when the company is responsible for an accident caused by an employee. Now, the employee has to be in the course and in the scope of their employment. And usually there's some courts will say in furtherance of their employment. So they have to be doing something that's in furtherance of their job, right? Then the company is liable for the employee. But if the guy is just doing personal stuff, it might not apply. But if the guy is the owner of the whole company, well, then maybe, because he's the owner. So I would just file a lawsuit on that and litigate it aggressively, and it'll be a fact-specific determination. But if he's the owner, he should have enough insurance, maybe umbrella, excess. You should be okay with that. Okay, and then Reginald says, how common is a default judgment in a PI case? Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, a default judgment is just when, this thing's going back and forth. I got this new camera. It's like an AI camera. It's supposed to track you, but I think I had the wrong settings. So it was like going in and out, trying to track me. This is better. Okay. I want you guys to get dizzy. Okay, so yeah, so a default judgment is just like when you file a lawsuit, but then the defendant doesn't answer. And then, you file for a default, meaning you didn't answer. So I get a judgment because you never answered the lawsuit. So that's a default judgment. How common is it? It's not that common. Usually they answer. But sometimes I've seen it mostly against like landlords. Sometimes you sue like a building, and for whatever reason, maybe they have bad insurance. Maybe they're just like slumlords and they don't care and they just don't answer. And so when they don't answer, you get a default. But then what happens usually is later on, like 6 months later, whatever, they do find out, oh my God, there's this lawsuit against me and there's a judgment against me. So then what they'll do is they'll file a motion to open up the judgment and then to answer. But they'll say, look, when I answer, I have insurance. I have $1 million in insurance. So we usually stipulate with them, because if we just have the default, okay, we have a default, then you have to go to an inquest. And there'll be like a judge. It used to be like a really old judge, like in their 70s or 80s. And they'll say, counselor, what are you asking for? And then you tell him $1 million, and he'll say, okay, 550 or whatever, just random numbers. And that'll be your number that you get at the inquest. But it's just a piece of paper. You have a piece of paper that they owe you 550,000. Go try to enforce it. Now you have to get a collections attorney, try to find this company, see if they have any assets, see where they bank. It's like a whole, endeavor. It's not easy. So when they say, look, I'm willing to vacate the default, but I'm going to appear and answer the lawsuit, I'm going to be in the case, and I'm going to have insurance, like $1 million or whatever they have, most lawyers will agree to that because that's guaranteed actual money, as opposed to a paper judgment. It's just a piece of paper. You can write anything, you can write 100 million, but you're not going to get the actual money. So what's the point? So yeah, but to answer your question, I don't think they're that common. I don't have, sometimes they happen, but usually they answer sooner or later. I've only had like I've been practicing since 1999, so like 25 years. I've only had a handful of cases where we had to take a default and the defendant never answered, like ever, you know, just never answered, and they just, were basically non-existent. That doesn't happen too often. Okay, let's see. What other questions? Jonathan says, hello. Hi, how are you? He says, I have a question. I have a motion on March 6th. Is it true that a case might get dismissed or you end up settling? Is this like a gambling situation or not? I had two fusions. I got hit by a truck, rear-ended. No, I mean, if you got rear-ended by a truck, why would it be dismissed? It's clear liability. You should move for summary judgment. Like, I don't know where it's happening, like which city. I don't know who you have as an attorney. But, feel free to text me. I'm happy to jump on a call and give you a private confidential consultation, 347-566-9595. It sounds like a good case. A motion, but it doesn't say a motion for what. I guess it's a motion to dismiss if they're trying to dismiss. But what's the reason? I mean, dismiss maybe for not giving them certain discovery, but then the lawyer should just say, look, I'll give you the discovery or whatever it is. I don't think it would be dismissed I mean, they're not going to force you to settle. You don't have to. You can just say, look, I want to go to trial. That's your prerogative. Some lawyers will show up and they'll say, what's your demand? My demand is a jury trial, because they know that, like, even if I say my demand is 10 million, they're not going to pay. So what's the point? There's no point to negotiate. But it sounds like you have a good case. Especially if you had two fusions, that could be like a $10+ million case. That's a crazy case. 10 fusion. I mean, two fusions. That's a very, very serious. I mean, like I was saying before in other videos, there was a case, one fusion went for like almost 10 million. So two fusions could go for huge amounts. Oh, I see. He's saying it's Chubb. Chubb is good. Yeah, Chubb has large limits. Oh, he's saying 27 million. Okay, and Queens. Yeah, Queens is fine. Queens is a good venue. You just have to spend a little time, because Queens is it's like a melting pot. You get all types of people. You get, like, I don't know, all different like nationalities. It's like the United Nations. So you have to make sure that the people are open-minded and that they're willing to allow for millions and millions of dollars if the law and the evidence justify it, right? So you can't say, like, will you give me $10 million? You can't say that, right? But you could say, if the law and the evidence justify it, if I prove it to you, are you going to be able to do that? And they have to be able to do that. And you kind of get that by chatting with them and chatting with the prospective jurors and seeing, like, if they're able. Some people are able to do that. So those are the people you want on your jury. Some people might say, you know what, I'm just unable. Like, I believe that I don't like personal injury cases, or I believe somebody gets injured. Well, like my sister got injured or my uncle got injured. He didn't get, $20 million. So I don't think anyone should get that. Some people will say that. So then you want to get them off for cause. You could remove them from the jury panel. So you have to spend more time picking the right jury. So you have to make sure that you have a real trial attorney handling that kind of case. Because, like, what I'm seeing, like, a lot in these consults, especially the ones from New York, are people think they might have a trial attorney, but the actual firm that they have is just like a guy who doesn't even do anything. They're just like a claim lawyer. So basically they're like, getting the case, and then they're just sitting on it. They're not even filing a lawsuit. And then it's just like one guy, maybe he has a few people under him, but the people under him are just like young lawyers who, I guess, they're helping to process the case. Because, there's some processing work, like sending letters, things like that, but it's not really even legal work. So yeah. So anyway, I'm seeing a lot of cases like that where people don't have a competent trial attorney. So then it's just sad, but they're just never going to be able to get that result, unless they switch or, but that's why I say, like, the most important thing is, like, who you hire really matters. So it's better to do it right away. When you have an accident, just hire the right lawyer right away. That way you don't have to worry about this stuff. But yeah, it happens so often, like, not just in New York, like in other states too. People have somebody And you could tell right away. You go on the lawyer's website, the lawyer just has, like, for example, they have like no verdicts, no settlements on their website. How can you not have any settlements? Because it's like a brand new lawyer, maybe a year or two out, and then they have pictures of like staff, like all these staff, but the staff, you could see right away they're just like, like a call center. They're like receptionists. They even have those headphones. I don't even know if they're different people or it's the same person, or yeah, I just I don't know. But you could tell right away. Wait a minute. If you had a verdict, you would put it on your website, right? If you had a settlement, you would put it on your website. So I don't know. It's just kind of silly to me, but I just don't want people to get tricked by these, like, you know, people that, because they basically just want to take your case, and then they want to they want to settle it because they want to make money, but it's not in your best interest as a client, because they're not. And the main point is they're not able to take the case to trial, right? So it's almost like, would you go to a restaurant that doesn't have a chef, right? They might have everything else, like a greeter, and they're like, I'll get you the best table. Here's a table. And they might have all the food in the kitchen, and they might have, I don't know, the pastry chef who makes only the pastries, like the chocolates, but they don't have the actual chef. So they can't, cook the food. It's the same kind of thing. It's like the lawyer is getting you in the door, signing you up, handling everything. But then if they don't have the trial lawyer, then they can't go to court. They can't get you top dollar, because that's where you get the top dollars, by filing the lawsuit, doing the discovery, putting it on the trial calendar, waiting, and then going to the jury. And then the jury is going to give you the most money. That's where the big money comes from. Or you could settle it, but you have to settle it, usually when you pick a jury or when you're on trial. That's where you're going to get the big money, the millions and millions. And plus, even if you were to get it earlier, for them to give it to you earlier, they would have to know that you're a trial lawyer, right? Like they have research, and they have all your records. Just like, I could research jury verdict reporter. They could research it. The insurance companies, they make billions of dollars, like billions every year. So, billions with a B. So they know, like, it's easy for them to research it and say, hey, this guy's a trial lawyer. Look, he has a 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 7 million. And this guy's not. They don't have any verdicts. So it's very, very important. I think that's like in fact, like later today at 6 p.m., I'm going to have a video that I'm going to publish, and it's going to be called How Much My Case is Worth. What's the lawsuit value of my case? And it's going to talk about mindset and the lawyer handling the case as an important factor. So yeah, check out that video either today or tomorrow. I think it's going to be released later tonight. Oh, Jonathan says, it's in Queens, New York, and after deposition, can we settle? My lawyer said that after the IME. Yeah, I mean, you could settle, but, as long as it's the right amount. You don't want to settle just for anything, right? You want to make sure, because you got two fusions. So you want to, I mean, I don't know if they're going to just pay like, like a big number. If you're looking for like two fusions, if you're looking for like 5 million and up, I don't think they're just going to pay that. You might have to prep it for trial, do the subpoenas, get all the experts, basically have all your ducks in a row, have all your everything ready. And then when you set foot in the courthouse and you're ready to pick a jury, then they might say, okay, I know we've been talking, but now we have the 5 million for you, or whatever the big number. So yeah, that sounds like a good case. So just text me if you need a consultation. I'm happy to chat with you. I should be available like tomorrow. I'll drop my number in the chat if you need a consultation. Yeah. Okay, let me see. What other questions do we have? Oh, someone says, I had an accident in 2018. Can I still bring it up? No, I don't think so. Usually the statute of limitations is 3 years. So 2018, that would be gone in like 2021. At least in New York, it's 3 years. Now, some states might be a little longer, like 4 years, but even 4 years, it would be gone from 2018. Unless the lawyer filed a lawsuit, then you could. Because if the lawsuit is filed and, for whatever reason, it's just kind of like pending, or it's been going on for that long, or maybe it's, dormant, but then you could like, boom, restore it. So take a look at that. And Oakley says, I love that broker liability video. My attorney has only found 1 million policies so far. I will definitely be asking my attorney about broker liability. Yeah, definitely. Broker and shipper, and there's other things. That's why it's really important to get like a trial lawyer that's familiar with your type of case. Like in a trucking accident, one of the memberships that I'm in is the American Truck Accident Attorneys, ATAA, and they have some of the top lawyers in the whole country, and they're like truck accident specialists to the extent that, like, I read some of the stuff on the emails on the listserv. They're talking about a specific carrier, and they say, do you have like discovery demands for this specific carrier, whether it's like Werner or CH Robinson or some other carrier, some other trucking company, and they say, look, I have this case against this company, ABC company. What is the way that they litigate, or how do they litigate against FedEx or Walmart, or whatever it may be. So they're like really, really detail oriented, and they know everything about trucking. So you want to make sure you're being represented by the best. Okay, and then Shania Chopra says, what is a 4-level spine worth when the defendant admitted liability? 6 million with a fusion. Oh, a 4-level spine fusion? Well, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have a value. Like I've said before, like procedures don't really have value in and of themselves. It's not like I could say, look, I had a 3-level, what is that worth, right? It's the whole enchilada, meaning like you have to present the human story. Like, how has this affected your life? How has this affected your family's life? You have to talk about your, if it's happened to you, like your husband or your wife, your kids, your friends, your coworkers. Like, what was your life like before? What is your life like now? Of course, you also need the doctors to come to court, like your surgeon, your physical therapist, your pain management doctor. But it's not just the question of, I had a 4-level and I'm getting X, right? So I think the important thing is that you really need a lawyer who's going to be willing to come to your house and find out and do a deep dive into your life, and then to get your photo albums, to get your iPhones, photos off your iPhone or your Samsung phone if you use Android. Get all, what I'm saying, and find out, like, how has this affected your Thanksgiving, your 4th of July, your whatever. Like, maybe you used to go somewhere for President's Day. It's coming up, right? Used to go skiing. You can't go skiing anymore because you're so hurt, right? How has your life changed? And do like a really deep dive like that. And then there's also something known as flashpoints. And flashpoints are things that jurors will relate to. Like, for example, humiliation. People don't want to be humiliated. People don't want to be ashamed. But people who are really, really hurt could be humiliated, could be ashamed because they can't do things that other people are doing, right? So those are the kind of things you want to be able to explain to a jury in an opening statement when you start a trial. But the important thing is that not just in an opening statement. Like, I do it early. I do it before the deposition. I go to the client's house. I get on Zooms like this with the client. I really find out about them. And then, I know everything about them. Where they were born, what their childhood was like, any obstacles they overcame in their life up until this crash happened or this fall happened, whatever the incident was, right? And then you have these themes like the overcoming obstacles. And then what you do is you explain all that to a jury, but not just, I'm sorry, not just to a jury. You send a settlement opportunity letter to the insurance company, and you say, look, there's a 4-level fusion. This is how it's impacted my client's life. Please pay me, $5 million. This is the fair value. You have 30 days to do it. Now, if they don't, okay, fine. But then when I go to trial, it's not just going to be 5 million anymore. Now it's going to be 7.5 million, after the 30 days expires, because the train has left the station, choo choo, bye bye. And now it's 7.5. But you got to stick to your guns, be strong. And now, and then you wait. And then if it goes all the way to a jury trial, you might say, okay, fine. So as soon as I start talking to the jury and doing jury selection, or as soon as I do my opening statement, it's going to be 10 million. And that really works. Like I've said in other videos, that really works. That kind of a stepping stone, that kind of a powerful, like, I'm in control. This is what it's worth. And here's why. Here's all the medical evidence. Here's my economist. Here's my life care planner. Here's my vocational rehabilitation expert. Here are all my doctors. They're all going to come to court. And here's my human story. I think the human story is huge, right? And that's actually what these guys do, Trial by Human. They help, like, with the human story. They're some of the top trial lawyers in the country. So, but not a lot of lawyers are doing that. People are doing cases like from 1950. They're just like, okay, I have a 4-level L5, S1, L4, L3. People don't know what L3 is. They don't care. They're just like people, right? Imagine you get called for jury duty and you have to go serve on a jury, and some guy is like reading L3, L2. You think you're going to be excited? Or are you going to be excited about, a story, like a real story? Like, for example, there was a trial this week that one of the lawyers from this group did in the West Coast, and he was talking about, it was a wrongful death of a 29-year-old lady, and the only surviving person in her family was her brother, because the mom passed away. She had cancer long ago, and the dad left them when they were kids. And so he told this really powerful story. He said, look, to him, he's the only surviving, he's in the military, the brother, and the only surviving person in his life was his sister. He loved his baby sister, and now she's dead because of medical negligence. And he had to be the father because the father left, the mother died. He had to be the father figure. And what was that like, being a father to her when you were, let's say, 15? You're like a kid yourself, but you're a father at 15, and it gave him, courage and responsibility and all these. So that's the kind of thing you want to be able to show, the powerful, the human story. People like really care about that. People listen because they can see it in their own life, and then they can see it in their friends and in their family's life. So, but I would say, look, to answer your question, like a 4-level fusion could be worth a lot. It could be worth anywhere from 3 million to 10 plus million. It could be worth a lot, absolutely. Okay. And then what other questions do we have? Oakley says, the other party has already admitted fault. Do you feel most cases settle once fault has been established? No, unfortunately not, because what they're going to do is they're going to fight you on damages. They're going to say that your damages are not caused by the crash, that it's caused by living your life, degeneration. So you have to fight the fight. You have to really be fearless and go to trial, and that's where you're going to get the big money. And then Jonathan says, my lawyer said the truck driver haven't filled the statement. I'm not sure why. Oh, okay. So you have to take their deposition. Just like notice them for a deposition, take their deposition. If they don't show up, make a motion to strike their answer. Then they get precluded. Then they can't, testify. So it's great because then it's like your version of what happened in the crash, and there's no truck driver. So it's like they just don't exist. They get precluded, which means they can't come to court. Because if you violate a court order and you don't show up to a deposition, you cannot later, testify because you violated the court order. So that's a good thing for you. Okay. And then this is going to sound so far out into the left field, but do you know anything about Agent Orange? Agent Orange. I mean, I've heard that there were lawsuits for that. That's a toxic tort. I know that. I think those cases are already settled. I have heard about it. I think that's one of the first toxic torts. Like all the toxic torts that you hear about, like whether it's you know, fen or Vioxx, and now people are suing over Zantac. I don't really do those myself. I do have some of those cases where I market for them or I get them and I partner with other firms, like bigger firms, and they litigate them, but we work on them together. Like lately, we've been doing a lot of Camp Lejeune. And I know there's also like firefighter foam cases. There's a lot of the toxic tort cases, the mass torts, and those can be very, very serious. And there's a lot of them. So there's also, like, of course, the sexual abuse cases against the Catholic Church, abuse in prisons. Those cases, like sexual abuse in prisons, I've been handling those like all over. Some in California, some in New York. So yeah, absolutely. Hello, Attorney Frekhtman. Oh, okay. Amiri. Joseph says, yeah, Attorney Frekhtman helped me find the attorneys Wilson and Raleigh. Yeah, that's the one I just talked about you. Oh, huh, okay. I didn't know you were here. I just talked about that that's the one in another state down in Georgia. Yeah, we just did that this week. Yeah, we helped him because this gentleman had a strong case, a truck crash. I looked at photos of his car, it was destroyed, and he had somebody who was more like a claim attorney who never had any trial experience, who was just kind of handling it as a claim. See, I really don't like claims because people that handle cases as claims, It just basically means it's like a self-storage. If I go to a self-storage unit and I take something and I dump it in the self-storage, it's going to lay there. A claim is just going to lay there unless, the lawyer does something. But what's the lawyer going to do if they can't go to court? What are they going to do? Just call the adjuster? Hey, can you give me money? No. Okay, thank you. What are you going to do? You can't do anything. So you're powerless. You're handcuffed. You can't do anything. So you really need a trial lawyer who can do everything. Then you can get, you can command. You can say this is worth X. I'm going to get X. So yeah, that's great. We're gonna help him. And then Clark says, "Hey, listening in from Australia. Oh, that's so cool. I've never been to Australia. I gotta go. I watch the Australian Open. I'm a tennis fan, so, but I haven't been to Australia. I want to go." And then Oakley says, "My case is being heard in federal court. Do you see better verdicts in state or federal court?" I would say, usually state court is better, but you can get, nice verdicts in federal court too, if the case is the right case. In federal court, unfortunately, they don't allow you to pick a jury as much. Although now they're changing. Some federal courts are allowing attorney-conducted voir dire, which is the jury selection, because in some federal courts, the judge does it, and the judge just kind of does it in a boring way, just reads a questionnaire, and everyone's like falling asleep, and it's not the best. You really need attorney voir dire, because then you get the jury that's, a good jury that's fair and that's going to be fair to both sides, but that's able to allow for like many millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, if the law and evidence justifies it. But you don't necessarily can't get that if you can't do the jury selection, right? If it doesn't exist, then that's the problem. Plus, like sometimes federal courts draw from different jurisdictions, so they tend to be conservative. But it doesn't mean that it can't be a nice result. And then Shania says, "So in order to get UIM, I have to go to a trial? My attorney did none of that. I did a deposition 3 months ago." Uninsured motorist? I don't know. It's hard to say, without looking at the file, but, just text me 347-566-9595. I'm happy to chat with you. It's free. It's confidential. Like, I don't tell your attorney. And look, I'll be totally honest with you. Like, I've been honest with people. Like, sometimes I do a consultation with people and I ask them, who's your attorney? And of course, I don't mean like who's the actual name of the lawyer. It doesn't matter. I probably won't know them. But I say, which firm is it? Which law firm is it? And they'll tell me the name of the law firm. And I could either, if I know them, I'll just be honest. Look, if it's a good lawyer, I'll just say, that's a good lawyer. You're in good hands. And that's usually what I say most of the time. But if it's a lawyer that's like one of these like mills, that's like a factory that's just getting like thousands of cases and not doing any legal work and just processing them and just, making money, settling them for pennies on the dollar, I'll say that, I'll be honest. But, it's confidential, of course. I won't tell your lawyer. I'll only tell you. And, that's basically it. Or if it's in another state, I could look them up. Like I did for this gentleman, Mr. Who just commented, Amiri Joseph. That was because that particular attorney that he had before was just like they didn't have any verdicts. They didn't have any settlements. How can you not have any verdicts like ever? Like you've never, wait a minute, you just opened up shop like yesterday? How can you not have any? I mean, even if you have like a $10,000 verdict, but you would say I have a $10,000, whatever, $10,000 settlement. But they had nothing, right? It was just like a picture of a young lady, and it had all these people that were like receptionists. I was like, what is this? That's really weird. So I just try to call it like I see it. But my goal really is to take like fresh cases, because when I take a fresh case, like if your accident just happened, I could build it up the right way. I could get you top dollar. If you already have an attorney, a lot of lawyers aren't going to want to take your case because you already have an attorney. But I'm just happy to give people consultations if they need it, just to help. I just want to help people. But yeah, my goal is not to take cases from other attorneys. Okay. Let's see. What other questions do we have here? Alez says, I slipped at a register, hands, feet in the air, hit the whole left side. As I got up, I see blueberries that the clerk just picked up, stumbled out hurt, went back next day to file a complaint, and fall still on the floor. So you slipped and fell and on the left side, and there were blueberries that the clerk just picked up. So that should be a caused and created type of situation, because if you're at the register, you're at an aisle. And if the clerk has just picked up blueberries, if you fell on the blueberries, then the clerk must have either dropped them or known that somebody else dropped them, right? Because they're picking them up, but obviously they didn't pick up all of them. So that's not reasonably safe to leave some of them for, they should have blocked off the aisle or whatever. Yeah, you could sue for that. That's a good case. Can I get punitive damages? No, you can't get punitive damages, but you can get regular damages. You don't really need to get punitive. Everyone's asking about punitive damages. You don't really need punitive damages. Punitive damages are only to punish the defendant for conduct that is so bad. Like I gave the example earlier. I don't know if you were watching earlier in this video. At the beginning of the live, I gave an example. Basically, it means that like if you know what you're doing is so likely to cause harm to others, or and you do it anyway, like because you don't care. Like for example, if I have a trucking company and I say like, I only have one driver left, all the other drivers are driving, but I get a call, hey, can you take this truck to California? I'll give you $100,000. I'm like, oh my God, $100,000. And the only driver I have is this guy who just drank a bottle of vodka. But I say, you know what? $100,000. Hey, Tito who just drank a bottle of Tito's. Get in the truck and drive to California from New York. I don't care. I want $100,000. Well, the guy just drank a bottle of vodka. He's probably going to kill people, but you do it anyway. That would be punitive damages. But dropping blueberries on the floor, you can't get punitive damages for that. I mean, unless they were like some kind of landmine blueberries that blew up or something. I don't know, landmines. No, I mean, that's definitely not. Okay, come along with Uncle Joe. Maybe this is the last question because I got to run. It's almost, I had to do it at 3 today, 3 p.m. Eastern, because I have a meeting at 4. So I have to run. But let me answer this question. In a trip and fall, can you get anything more than the medical bills? Of course, you get pain and suffering and you get loss of enjoyment of life. That's like every video that I've ever made. Oh my God. Come along, Uncle Joe. Have you been watching any videos that I've ever made? That's my whole message. You can get pain and suffering. You can get your pain, your suffering, you're conscious, meaning you're conscious, you're not asleep, you're not, you're awake, like alive. Conscious pain and suffering. That's the big money. That's called non-economic damages, as well as loss of enjoyment of life. That's the human story. Of course you can. Medical bills, the good lawyers, they waive the medical bills, meaning they don't want them, because what happens is the medical bills become an anchor. And, if your medical bills are low, let's say your medical bills are 10 grand. Well, now the jury thinks, well, medical bills are 10 grand, so let's give the guy 20 grand, right? You don't want that. If you just waive the medical bills, you don't get the 10 grand, but then you can go in and say, this is a life-changing injury, it's worth $1 million, and the jury will give you $1 million. So you don't want that low anchor. You want the high anchor, And I'll do a video about anchoring and the whole concept. It's a psychological concept. Okay, and then Shania Chopra says, where can you find attorney verdicts? Well, you really, on their website maybe, but you really, if they list it, but you can't really find them. They're in like these databases for lawyers like Lexis, Westlaw, Jury Verdict Reporter, but I'm happy to like look it up for you. Just text me 347-566-9595. And then Les says the slip mark was still on the floor 26 hours later. Yeah, I mean, that's a strong liability. You're going to win the case. That's good. If it was there 26 hours before you fell and they knew about it and they didn't clean it up, and then or you're saying 26 hours after you fell? I mean, after you fell, it wouldn't really matter because the accident already happened. You already got hurt. Whatever happens after doesn't matter. But if it happened before you got hurt, that would be good. That would be strong liability. And then Shala says, we're sitting in the back seat. Can't we sue the driver's insurance? Yeah, if you're a passenger, you sue everybody. Okay, I have to run, but thank you, everyone. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Let us know what questions you have. If you have a request for a video, just let us know. We'll do a video for you. And all the best to you. Our goal is helping serious injury victims and families, and we'd be happy to give you like a private, no obligation, confidential consultation. And that's the 347-566-9595. Just text me anytime. I'll probably do a few. I did like 10 or 15 this week. I just try to do as many as I can. Probably do a few more tomorrow. Okay, bye-bye.